I basically went to my chain of command in the British Army and said, look, my wife's had an affair, we're getting divorced, all of this stuff is happening, but there's this opportunity.
Today's guest is Ollie Carson, a British Army vet, now online business coach, who went against the standard scale at all costs playbook. Ollie rebuilt his business around simplicity, enjoyment, and profit, and the result over the past 10 years, I believe, of running an online business, he generated an online coaching business model that generated serious revenue without all the stress, the headache, and the endless meetings. And here I've got him on the podcast. So welcome to the pod, Ollie.
Dude, thank you so much for having me, man. And thanks for the intro, mate. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. So obviously you were in the British Army for quite a decent amount of time in your life. What made you kind of make that pivot to entrepreneurship? Because not everyone going out of the army is like, you know what, let me become an entrepreneur. So what made you make that step?
Yeah, man, this is kind of like the army was actually kind of like the catalyst for me to get into coaching. So one of my side roles in the British Army was I was a physical training instructor. So each regiment will have PTIs, physical training instructors, who are in charge of kind of taking the physical training for the guys on camp and making sure that they're fit and ready to deploy and injury free and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like where coaching started for me, is the PTI role in the British Army. And I actually decided to leave the British Army because there was a few things going on in my personal life at the time. I just found out that my wife had an affair at the time. So there was lots going on with my marriage was breaking down. I'd just seen an opportunity to become a personal trainer in a new facility in the south coast of the UK, in a small place called Chichester. Actually, the guy who was setting this gym up is someone that I'd followed for years on social media. His name's Jamie Alderton. He's very well known in the fitness industry, in particular in like the UK and Europe. And I saw this opportunity, and I basically went to my chain of command in the British Army and said, look, my wife's had an affair, we're getting divorced, all of this stuff is happening, but there's this opportunity that looks sick, like I really want to take this. And typically what happens in the army, if you try to leave, you have to put in a year's notice. You can't just say I'm leaving and then go. It's to prevent guys from like getting annoyed with things and bugging out. But because I had all of these things going on, they basically let me go. So it was literally a case of 1 week I was in the army. The next week I was moving my whole life down to the south coast of the UK, starting this new personal training job in this brand new gym. And that's kind of where my quote unquote entrepreneurial journey started, is starting my PT business from scratch. So that's kind of how it happened. And then there are many phases beyond that, but that was the entry into the entrepreneur space, as it were.
Yeah. You don't have to get too into this if you don't want to, but I think a lot of people enter entrepreneurship from a point of lack. They hit rock bottom and they want to kind of prove it to themselves that they can, be something. They can prove to the world that they're reaching their full potential. Do you think because of the issues with the marriage, because of that pain, do you think that was the catalyst for you to do this? Because you can tell me if I'm wrong here. Maybe you would have not went down that path if things were kind of a bit more, simple. So what impact did that have on you kind of making that step?
Yeah, I think you're maybe right. I think for me, it was a great opportunity to have a complete fresh start, new career, new beginnings, new area, really a chance to kind of reinvent myself and start over again in a period of time that was quite challenging for me personally. And, at that point, I'd already served sort of 9.5 years in the army. And I was done with it. I'd kind of achieved everything that I wanted to achieve in the military. And it was kind of this culmination effect of, my wife and my separation, and my wife and I's separation, having enough of the military. And it kind of led me to this thing, this at the time, it seemed like an escape route. I maybe wasn't really aware of just how difficult it was going to be to set up the business, find clients, make it profitable, earn my keep. I was a little bit naive actually going into it, but that kind of served me well in the early stages, as it does many naive entrepreneurs who start their own businesses who maybe aren't so privy to how difficult this can be. It's actually that level of unawareness can be a really useful tool, and it definitely was for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs getting into the space, they're super naive. I can do this. Your friends and your parents will tell you, be realistic here. Come on, and then, but yeah, that makes you push forward. So obviously now you're doing the PT thing. I mean, this is pretty cliche, but did the army teach you anything about, discipline, entrepreneurship? Because a lot of people actually need that. That's the main key force that they lack to make things work. So what are the things that you kind of learned from the army that allowed you to start, entrepreneurship PT and move forward from there?
Yeah, so in the army, in the British Army specifically, you get drilled into you from day one what are called the core values of the British Army, and the acronym is C drills. So it stands for courage, discipline, respect for others, sorry, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment. And this is literally ingrained in you the entire way through your career. And those values really form the foundation for how I operated in my business. So although I had no idea about tax and client acquisition and sales and all of these different things, I had the values that had been hammered into me over the last decade or so in the British Army. And so they really served me very, very well. I think at the foundational level, good business is serving people more often than not, especially in a service-based industry like personal training or online coaching or whatever it is that you're doing. And at the core of what you do, if you do good work for your clients and you look after them and you treat them correctly, which is very much what we are taught in the British Army, you can't go too far wrong. Now, obviously, there are much more nuanced things that we need to learn if we're really going to develop and grow a business. But they were just an amazing fundamental starting point for me to have a successful career.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of people get into it for the money and don't think about, the product and service. And yeah, that's extremely important. So let's move a bit further. You're doing PT, you're working with clients. What made you go through the stages of where you're at today? Like, take us through the evolution of Ollie Carson.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'll do this in the rapid style so that I'm not laboring on this for long. Because obviously, I mean, I've been in business now for,
The
I
reason
can't
I'm
remember the,
asking, by the way, is because so many people are interested in this, right? For you, it might be boring, like, step by
oh,
step.
okay.
But so many people that see successful entrepreneurs, they want to know the steps. They want to feel relatable to their journey. Especially for me, I looked at a lot of, entrepreneurs. You watch you read the David Goggins book of all the failures he went through, and I feel like the relatability is what so many entrepreneurs need because it's so lonely at the start. You feel like you're a black sheep. So that's why I'm asking. I think it's super cool to go back and see, okay, what were the things that led me to where I'm at today?
Yeah, I think my evolution is maybe slightly different from most in this day and age. Like when I think about you, Jay, and everything that you're achieving in your business now, it's like it blows my mind, like the levels that you're getting to at your age and for how long you've been doing this for. Whereas for me, I kind of maybe took a slightly slower and longer route to where I am now. Everything kind of evolved organically and naturally over many years. So I was a personal trainer working out of somebody else's facility. So I was kind of like a self-employed trainer. I'd filled my diary with PT clients over the course of 2 or 3 years. The next evolution from there was to open my own training facility. And I did that with 2 business partners. We opened our own facility. That was the next evolution. And we did that for 2 to 3 years. My online fitness business started growing at this point concurrently. So this was all happening at the same time. The next evolution was to step away from the in-person training and just do the online. And that was kind of maybe 2 or 3 years before the pandemic in 2020, which is a nice, easy reference point for me to remember. And then the biggest turning point, getting into the kind of business coaching and mentoring space, I'll tell you the specific story with this one. What happened was it was 2020. So the lockdowns had just happened. I was a part of a mentorship for fitness professionals with an incredible mentor called Phil Graham, my first proper mentor, I consider him to be. I was in his top program. It was called Boardroom at the time. And he'd recognized that I was doing good work. He recognized that I had good client retention throughout the pandemic. Lots of his clients, personal training clients, were losing people because they couldn't get to the gym anymore. But I was actually growing the business. I was signing up more and more online clients, and he wanted me to deliver a presentation to his clients about what it was that I was doing, what was working, how I'm positioning things, and so on and so forth. So anyway, I ended up presenting on a Zoom call to maybe 150 or 200 personal trainers in Phil's group. And I was literally just bombarded with DMs afterwards, like, dude, what you're doing is sick. Like, what system is that? How have you done that? Just loads and loads of questions. And I thought, there's something here, So I just ran with it, and I started my business mentorship for fitness professionals in that moment, not to Phil's dismay at all, because we still chat, we bump into each other at events and stuff. I absolutely am not a competitor of Phil's. I never have been. He is the GOAT. He's an absolute giant in his space. But I did create something that was kind of in competition with what he did in that moment. But that was the big leap for me, is going from like online fitness coaching to business coaching. That happened in 2020. And then all of the stuff that I'm sure we'll probably get into that happened from there, and changing the model and doing what I do today, that has been the next evolution.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we're gonna get right into the different models and stuff, because I think that's what a lot of people are looking towards. And even I see now, people are constantly, it's almost like every 6 months they're burning down their business and making a new one because of what's changing in the market. So tell the audience a little bit about the mistakes you made when growing the business initially, the coaching business for business owners, and then what you kind of changed to, and what made the difference there.
Yeah. So I think really what happened is I probably grew too quickly, in that me as an individual and as the founder of the business, I really wasn't equipped with the tools, the knowledge, the experience to run the business that I'd ultimately set up, this business coaching business. And the demand was high and clients were coming through. And so I did what I thought I had to do, which is bring in team, bring in people to help with fulfillment and delivery, start, offloading the coaching to other people, sales team, so on and so forth. At its peak, we had about 7 permanent members of staff. And I got further and further away from the day-to-day kind of operations and working with clients and so on. And we just kept adding things in and trying to improve it by adding more calls each day and all of these different things. And ultimately, if I'm completely honest, I just wasn't a good leader. I wasn't a good manager of people. And I can hold my hands up and admit that now. And when you're not managing people and they're looking after clients and they're doing all these things and things are going wrong, it's not long before you're just constantly putting out fires. And that's kind of where I got to, sort of towards the back end of 2023, 2024. And I was on the brink of genuinely just jacking it all in and going, I don't want to do this anymore. If this is what entrepreneurship is supposed to be, if this is the only way that I can make the money I want to make, then I don't want to do it. And so that was kind of the beginning of the end of that model of working with clients, which is kind of where I found Tom and changed my model.
Yeah. I just will give a quick story because this relates a bit to me and what you're talking about. Just to give you a bit of insight, I started, working with clients and signed up to Frederick Pahus. You might know him. He's also part of Tom. He's based out of Denmark. I was in Hamburg at the time, so I just fit into the bracket of where he was running his ads to. And he did the exact same thing. He grew his business, hired more team, had 14, people at some point, burned everything down because it was so stressful. It was like constant payroll, constant keeping up with. You weren't even working with the clients. You were just a manager at that point. And I was going kind of through his program, and I was realizing this in real time, and then, things were kind of to shift for everyone. Like with you, with him, with people in the space, people just set their priorities differently, because that's in reality what it is. You could have technically still continued with it, but the priority was I want a bit more freedom, I want a bit more peace in my life. And then things started to shift to a more, okay, this isn't so offer focused, but it's more proximity focused, which is, at the time, Frederick Post had an offer, if you don't make 5K a month, get your money back in 180 days or something, right? It was very offer focused, like get in, you know what I mean? But now it's completely flipped where it's like you're getting proximity to me as a person because of the information and the experiences I've lived. And I think that's a big shift that a lot of people are making or have made up at this point.
And a really the industry needed it, because the more people push the very outcome centric offers where big promises and guarantees, I think the less credibility and respect the industry of business coaching or coaching in general, the less credibility it gets as a whole. Because people's bullshit filter starts ringing, right? It's like, as you said, make 5K in this many days or get a full refund and I'll rub your feet. It's like people can see through those things. And actually, I think what clients and customers of these sorts of services actually prefer is just honesty. What is realistic? What is required of me? What do I get access to? What are the potential outcomes? What are some examples of things of clients that have achieved before me? And if you can present it in that way, you immediately gain more trust from people, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's people are more sophisticated, right? They know what's true and what's false. So with you now in your current state of your business, what does your day-to-day look like and what are you trying to optimize for? It's maybe more of a vague, open-ended question, but I'm just curious because, packing your calendar full with to-dos maybe isn't the best way. What is your priority right now in your life and what do you want to, I guess, what is your 2026 like looking like?
For me, my main focus is stacking skills and knowledge. So this 2026 and 2025 as well, just gone, is really about getting around some of the smartest people in this space and learning from them and taking from them what I think is useful for my clients. So I'm kind of playing the long game with this now. Sure, I want to bring on clients and I want to, do deals and all the rest of it. Every entrepreneur does. But my number one focus is getting my knowledge and my expertise to a point where I have so much conviction in my ability to lead my clients to the results that they want that I'm not worried about things changing and trends and tactics and all the rest of it. I just want to equip myself with the most knowledge possible. So for me, a lot of my day to day is spent on, research and development for the program, making sure that we're up to date with what's working right now, relaying that to clients. Obviously, a big part of what we do is marketing and split testing things. So my day to day is super cool right now. Honestly, it's nothing like it was back in the back end of 2023, 2024. So I'm immensely grateful.
That's amazing. Let's say there's someone watching this, maybe they're building their personal brand, maybe they even got a few clients in their coaching business. What do you think is the main key drivers that maybe you see with your own clients or with yourself when you were growing your business that was the biggest needle mover that many people maybe overlook? Maybe it's not the first thing that people tell you, like post more content or do more outreach, but what is maybe a thing that people overlook that you think is very important when growing?
I think now it's different from a few years ago, but I think now a big thing that we're going to see is a real move towards people who are genuinely more thought leaders than the rest of the market, because it is busy. And I know we hear that all the time and it sounds like a bit of a cliche. It's a saturated market and all this kind of stuff. It is very busy. And there's this tension constantly between wanting to emulate and replicate what works and having your own unique ideas. Having your own unique ideas is difficult for a few reasons. Number one, it's difficult because you actually have to carve out the time in your diary to sit and to think and to be creative, to test, to experiment, and to share. So that's difficult in and of itself, but it's also difficult for another reason, which is it's not proven yet. You know, if you've got to spend your time and energy somewhere, you almost want to go down a proven route. And that's why creators and online business owners tend to copy each other. It's not because they're malicious or lazy or whatever. It's because they can see that that thing is working. So why wouldn't they do that? It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But now what I think is happening more and more is the market is starting to recognize people copying one another, and they will tend to lean towards the genuine thought leaders, the people who are coming up with their own unique ideas and actually sharing them with people. So that's kind of, and again, another focus for me at the minute is actually carving really good time out of my diary to sit down and just to think and be creative.
Yeah. I think also bouncing off of that, I'm by nature a very creative person. And I think because business is quite logical, it is quite mathematical in a sense, you sometimes, get to a point where you're like, you do limit your potential in a way because you're almost confined creatively. And I think it's very hard, as you mentioned, to find a balance between being more of that artistic self in certain elements of your business. Maybe it's recording a video and being creative, and you might not get a ton of views, but it might build your brand in terms of its uniqueness, and balancing that with, okay, what is working, what is not working, let's move forward. Because for me, I used to, I still do it from time to time, but like make music, create graphic designs, that type of thing. And sometimes you try to mix it in with your business, but you have to do it on a tasteful level where you're not, looking like an idiot. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big hard thing that a lot of people struggle with, is like being creative.
Yeah, like you said, it's one of those things that you're either innately creative or you're not, But like again, as you mentioned, it's having that self-awareness to know where are my strengths. Alex Hormozy calls it the makers and the managers. There's obviously another great book called the E Method, and it's like this understanding that for a business truly to grow, there are almost three personality types that you need to adopt at any point. It's like the technician, the person who knows the skill, whether that's marketing, sales, product development, whatever the technician needs to do. You have the manager, who makes sure that the P&L statement is done and the tax returns are being done and all those different things. And then the entrepreneur, the person who's going out and taking risks and, coming up with ideas to market something and sell something online. So you just need to know where your weaknesses are and make sure that you consciously put energy into improving on those areas. If you're not a creative person, then learn to be a little bit more creative. You just need to in this day and age.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously you are telling the audience here that you want to spend a lot of your time this year in skill acquisition, giving the best results for your clients. Do you have a specific goal revenue wise, or do you have ambitions to be like the best in the industry? Like, what is the driver that's pushing you every single day? Because there must be something that's getting you up in the morning other than, I don't know, I'm going to acquire more skills today. Do you have any specific things that you're motivated by, or that gets you up in the morning?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the fact that you can't hit a target you can't see, so I write my goals every day. I know what I'm aiming towards. I do have financial goals that I want to hit. I've got things that I'm working towards for sure. But I would say more than anything else, and again, I kind of battle with this tension between the entrepreneur in me who wants to continually push and grow, and the personal side of Ollie who doesn't want to go back to the place that I was in sort of back end of 2023. And I've actually just started working with a coach, a men's leadership coach, who's helping me. He's basically holding the mirror up to me and making sure that I'm acting in accordance with my long-term vision, values, and goals, which at the forefront of that for me is my family, and making sure that I maintain the best possible relationship with my family. So that might come at the cost of revenue and business growth, but ultimately that's the most important thing. So there is a tension there, and I do have to check myself from time to time. But it doesn't stop me from being ambitious. Like I've got big goals that I want to hit financially for sure. I think it's important for every entrepreneur to have a financial goal that they are striving towards.
Of course. And I think the person that you come through that striving is way more important than the goal itself, right?
Yeah,
Developing
dude,
yourself.
I love that. Yeah.
Because I think it was Dan Coe that said this, if you go to a person and he's like, oh, I want a Ferrari. It's like some people might see, okay, that's superficial as heck, right? Like that's just like the most shallow thing you can say. But what happens is through the pursuit of trying to get that Ferrari, that's where the depth and the self-improvement comes, which is the most important thing. I'm not sure if you saw the Alex Hormozi and Tony Robbins interview.
I saw a chunk of it, yeah. I haven't watched the whole thing yet.
What you're speaking about holding up the mirror, Tony Robbins basically did that for Alex Hormozi.
It was a masterclass, I heard. Yeah, he basically coached Alex the whole way through the interview, right?
Yeah, and it was basically, Alex Hormozi was kind of, in this sense, the person that is always striving for more. And he was asking Tony Robbins for like basically a hand, like, hey, I'm struggling with balancing, focusing on myself and the other aspects of life other than just work. And Tony Robbins coached him through that a bit, but it kind of just reminded me of what you said there, which is finding the balance between work and striving versus your family and making sure that side is kind of taken care of. Do you work in sprints and seasons when it comes to that stuff, or how do you kind of chunk that up? Because also with me, I go out with my friends and sometimes you feel guilty at the end of the night. You're like, oh, I could be spending my time working here, and I think every entrepreneur struggles with that. So what is your method to kind of get a good balance without feeling guilty? Because I'm sure Alex Hormozi probably would say the same.
Yeah, for me, it's not necessarily sprints where like there's going to be a period of time, over 60 days, 90 days where I'm working every hour God sends, and don't expect to see me, honey, because I'm not coming home this evening. It's like I don't operate in that way. The way that I am able to be productive and get lots done is just being ruthless with time management. So just having a strict routine and schedule with work whereby, I'm up for 2 hours before my family gets up in the morning. That's where I do my deep work in the morning. I spend my hour and a half with the family, getting the kids ready for school, having breakfast with them, having coffee with my wife, drop the kids to school. I'm back in. I'm doing my marketing I've got a plan that I follow religiously. I'm very much like a creature of habit and routine. And I think that's, again, something that I've acquired over many years in the army. But the second that I try and change my routine or, try different things, try different productivity hacks or whatever, it goes wayward for me. So I have to, I'm very regimented with my timings,
Do you find it hard to turn off? Like, let's say, for example, it's 8 p.m. It's like, okay, now it's time to watch a movie and chill. Do you find it easy to be like, you know what? Because I think that's the toughest part. It's like, now it's time to switch off. Do you find difficulty in that?
You'll know yourself, dude. You never switch off, do you?
Never.
You never switch off. As I've gotten older, and now that I have children and I've got a wife, I make a conscious effort to be present. That being said, I know for a fact that I don't always, I fail in that area. I absolutely fail in that area. And I think if you speak to most business owners, they'll be the same, because in the back of your mind, it's like, I need to respond to that client who's got this issue. I need to make sure I get that sorted for tomorrow. So it's constantly going around in your head. But I think having a level of discipline I heard an amazing saying recently that's just really simple, but explains what we're talking about beautifully. And it was, don't do tomorrow's work today. I think it was actually Tom Noski that said it. Don't do tomorrow's work today. And that was just a great way for me to put in a box like, yeah, you might be thinking about things in the evening and things that you need to get done for tomorrow or whatever, but just do it tomorrow. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. So that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a great quote. And I'm trying to implement more of that myself. Let's try to brainstorm a little bit. Where do you think coaching is going? Especially with AI, especially with people burning down their businesses every 3 months, telling people, oh, I'm more peaceful now. I'm not focusing on scale. Where do you think things are going to go in 2026?
I think all of these things are sat on a pendulum. So whenever we see big shifts in one direction with anything, whether it's people using AI, when AI first came about, how many of these like AI scaling gurus popped up? We're going to completely automate and systemize your business. It's going to be completely hands off. You're going to make all this money. You're not going to lift a finger. And the pendulum is already starting to swing back into the other direction where it's like people are talking about human connection, in-person events, all of these things, right? So I've been in the game for long enough now to know that trends will always come and go. But one thing that will never change at the core of what we do as service-based businesses is the results that you deliver for your clients and the service that you provide them, the way that you speak to them, the way that you treat them with care, how they feel about being inside your community or when they're having a conversation with you. Those things are timeless. And so for anyone listening to this, I would think less about where is the coaching space going? What are the trends? What should I be focusing on? And think more about how can I build better connections and relationships with my clients? How can I improve my product and service? Like just keep those things at the core of what you do and you will be trend proof, because there'll no doubt be something else in the not too distant future. But those things are what will keep you in the business for the long run.
Yeah, for sure. And for those listening, I think that's always the best advice, especially because a lot of people are looking for mentors and these buzzwords capture them in, and then they, work with one of these gurus that promise them the world with AI, just systems. And you're totally right, where if you have the foundations, if you understand, psychology, which will always stay the same, then you know that connection and that type of thing is the most important. And that's amazing advice. So in 2026, obviously AI is going to improve, but at the end of the day, if you focus on your product, if you're focusing on giving value, you will, grow. Anything that you want to explain in terms of your ecosystem? Because obviously we spoke about you, prior to the ecosystem, full of a team. What was the switch that now your calendar is way empty, you have more time to focus on skill acquisition, which probably wasn't the case prior. What was the biggest flip of the switch?
So there's two parts of it. So when you think about the calendar of a business owner, it's usually occupied by two things: client conversations and potential client conversations, so sales calls. And the two biggest things that needed to change for me to reduce those things down was, from a client perspective, is go hard on the front end with the training material and the education that I provide my clients with, such that it does most of the heavy lifting for me. So now when clients come on board, the education that they receive through the training is structured in such a way that they, number one, complete it all, which is really important. There's some stat that most online courses have a 5% completion rate. And that is simply because most online courses are just terrible, right? They're not engaging. You don't want to watch a 45, 60-minute hour pre-recorded Zoom call where people are asking stupid questions. They don't get completed because they're boring. So I wanted to make it short, sharp, engaging, entertaining in places, easy to consume. And now, since, applying that to the business, most of my clients finish all of the material within 4 weeks max, and they can sit down and they can smash out several lessons in an hour, and actually make really good progress with understanding what we're doing and setting up the systems and so on. So that covered the client calls being in the diary all the time, is fixing that. And then with the sales side, it was really just, again, having stronger marketing, not needing sales calls because the marketing was strong. And that was really through starting YouTube and leaning heavily onto long form content to do a lot of the nurturing, as opposed to having to convince people on sales calls. We also use in our ecosystem strategy something called a micro offer, whereby we bring people in at a lower price point, But unlike most low ticket offers where you strip away all of the great features of that product or that service, we keep it all in there. We blow them away with the service, and then we upsell them into the high ticket program. So that's how we've been able to get rid of sales calls, get rid of client, well, not get rid of client calls. Client calls are open and available to everyone in my community, but they're just not needed as much because the training material is so good.
Yeah, that's amazing. I also think it's a great point with the low to high ticket kind of way to ascend people, because there's always people saying like high ticket is the only way or low ticket is the only way. It's like there's so much nuance, and I think the problem is especially like if you're someone that doesn't have guidance from a mentor and you're on social media, because of the way hooks work, they're trying to be controversial. One person says don't do this, other person, you just completely confused with what you should be doing because everyone wants to have a take on things. No one wants to have a nuanced hook where you're like, you can do this in this scenario.
It doesn't work. It doesn't get the same reach.
It doesn't get the same reach. So there's nuance. And I think just telling people, look, you're doing both in a way that gets you the most returns in your business is awesome. And yeah, I think that's why, we both do kind of like consulting and mentorship, but like getting someone to just tell you what to do and not go through every single place, that's helped me so much. I dropped out of university because I wanted to do this, and one of the first things I did was like put a bunch of money on a credit card with a mentor, and it helped me so much. Not for everyone, by the way. Like, don't do that if you're doing starting. Yeah. But like, that's something that helps you so much because you do get those nuanced takes.
And it's also the elimination of other options. Good coaching and mentorship is as much about you as the client as it is the mentor or the person teaching you. It's like you committing to only taking an advice from one person that you're going to trust. They seem to have proven to you that they have a thing, it's working, and you're taking guidance from that person. And it's actually the elimination of all of the other stuff, the noise, that helps you achieve the result. Because ultimately everything works, right? You can do what you want. You can grow a business in so many ways. But in hiring a coach or a mentor, you shut out the noise of all of the options and you go all in on one thing. And that's typically where people get results, is just by going all in on one strategy.
Yeah, I think like shiny object syndrome is the biggest reason people fail. And I'm even someone that did this myself. You buy a little, Danco course here, and then you go there, and then you try this, and you're looking at 3 different people. And then next thing you're arguing with your coach that you hired because they have a different method. It's like, it's very hard today to take advice from one person, but it's gonna speed up your situation so much faster. But don't want to ramble on this too long, but tell people a little bit about, some final last words, what you're planning on building this year. It's been a great conversation, but maybe you've got some last few words or something you want to mention to people that can help them on their journey. So maybe take it away.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, yeah, I've really enjoyed it. So, dude, thank you for having me. I would just echo the sentiment of get clear on what your kind of North Stars are in business, what your values are, your non-negotiable things that you don't want to stray too far from. And it kind of makes you trend proof. I've been doing this for the last 10 years, running a business. I'm one of the older guys in the game. And they're the thing that I lean back on and refer back to more often than not, because a lot has changed over the last 10 years, but because I can stay true to those values, I can apply the skills that I've acquired to any business and make it happen. So what are the North Stars? What are the values? Stick to those. It's not to say don't worry about what's happening with AI and all those things are obviously important. We need to integrate them into the business to stay current and make sure that we're able to keep up with competitors and so on. But don't lose sight of the things that are most important to you. Like ultimately, entrepreneurship is a long-term game, and if you want to stay in this for a long time, you've got to have great values.
You have to understand, just like Ollie said, that it is people, especially young people like me. They're like 2 months, 10K a month. Like they're all of these fast promises, and you completely forget that this could take 5 years. And during those 5 years, you still want to enjoy your life. You still want to do things to develop your character. And having values that reflect that is going to make things so much easier, because otherwise you will, just because you're working hard, it doesn't mean you're developing, you know? And having values that allows you to grow as a character is super important. So it's been awesome, man. Check Ollie out in the description. I'm going to put all of his links, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Sweet, man. Thanks, Jay.